Good morning or good afternoon, whenever or wherever you are watching this. I'm on a ride today. At least this is footage from a ride. I'm on a 2021 KTM 300 XCW. This bike actually has already been awarded to someone because this was filmed in late summer 2021, and I know it's February now. I'm actually recording this voiceover on February 8th of 2022 because I haven't been doing as much riding recently as I want to. So I wanted to bring to you some of this riding footage. This is, I've just watched this entire thing. It's about 10 minutes. This is one of the times where I've caught myself sitting the very most in the last long time. Most of the time when I'm riding, I'm standing, and I'm standing right now. You can always tell if I'm standing, or usually you can tell if I'm standing if all you can see is my front fender there, and sometimes a little bit of the handlebars. The perspective changes, and you can see my handlebars a lot more. You can see my hands. That's if I'm sitting, because you end up sitting back, and so you can see it in the footage right there, at least with the camera that I'm using most of the time, which I've been using a Sony FDRX 3000 camera, point of view camera for a long time. So the question is, well, Kyle, why were you sitting so much? Well, it's because this is day 4 of a 4-day riding trip, and we had done, I can't remember exactly, but I think already at this point we had done like 170 miles of riding in the 3 days that preceded this. And then as this trail, this is the beginning of the day, as this trail goes more and more into this, it gets steeper and steeper and rockier, and my legs were already tired. The whole body, legs, shoulders, back, everything is already quite tired. And the funny part is, and this doesn't always happen, sometimes it does, but today, this day, the day 4, with the loop that we ended up doing, and we split the group, it ended up being the most strenuous day of all of them. And sorry, I've got to clear my throat here. Swabbing. The cool thing is, this is where you really start to get gains. And so I'm still standing, but you'll notice I'll be sitting here in a bit. And these are the days, these are the times when we really push ourselves, where we get the most kind of out of it. The most kind of out of our endurance and our riding, and building our stamina and our mental strength. So much of riding is mental strength. I don't have a ton of footage from the last half of this ride because it was grueling, and I was just like, I'm not turning on my bloody camera. I have a couple little clips. I don't even know if I have enough to turn it into a video. But when you're going, see, I've sat down now, and I'm actually paddling right through there. And so I can tell just by watching this, seeing how far back I am, and seeing that I'm paddling. A, I know that it was steep, and B, I know that I was gassed. I can bring myself back. See, I'm standing. I stood through that section, but I can bring myself back mentally to what was going on that day, and I didn't even know what was in front of me. What ended up being in front of me through the second half of the morning and then the afternoon was one of the more challenging rides that I've been on. Just because of everything that happened, atmospheric conditions, the unknown, because we ended up kind of getting up to a point, and we knew we had to drive at least 8 hours home after this ride. And so the group ended up, there was, what was it? I got 3 in front of me, 5 behind me, so there was 9 of us. The group actually split to where only 3 of us continued and tried to complete a loop that no one in the group had ever done, but we could see it on the maps. We had GPS, on the phone apps. I'm just using Onyx Off-Road. We had the idea of what we could do, but no one had ever done it. No one had ever seen the trails, and they ended up being pretty challenging. And part of the challenge in a situation like that is if you don't know. The first time that you do something, it's always the hardest because you don't have that mental knowledge of how much is left. A big part of the endurance and a big part of these rides, especially if you're going into an area that you've never been before, the mental challenge of, I don't know how much is left, I don't know what type of obstacles are in front of me, I don't know how steep it is, I don't know how much exposure there is. Those things mentally drain you. And I have found in my riding, and especially on a day like today, as I contemplate how I felt during the ride, because this isn't the bad part. This was just like kind of the warm up, getting up, but then we got into some really nasty, really super nasty rock climbs and side hills and boulder type areas. And it was mentally challenging. It would have been, this would have been the perfect loop to do on, say, day 2 of this trip, because we would have had day 1 of the books. I mean, you'd be a little bit sore from day 1, but you'd kind of be warmed up. It would either be good on day 1 when you're totally fresh, or day 2. But this was happening on day 4, and it ended up being quite a mental challenge towards the end. And I remember getting back in the truck with Tyler, and it was just, in fact, maybe there was 4 of us that continued the loop. I guess there probably was 4 of us now that I think about it. That ended up finishing the loop. Yeah. Because there was 2 trucks that ended up doing it. That ended up, leaving together towards the end of the day. And the other thing too is we had the weather coming in on us. So I was prepared. I had, a jacket and these types of things. But we knew the weather was coming in, and that was playing an additional weight on my mind. We'd seen the weather reports, and we could just see it out there as the day got longer and longer. We could kind of see that it was coming in, and we knew that we didn't know what the terrain was in front, and it was really challenging. And when we actually got down to the truck, and as soon as we got to the truck, then it rained when we were going down the canyon. And I'm like, man, if that rain would have come in 2 hours earlier, we could have been in a world of hurt, because we would have been gassed at the end of the day. The rocks and different things could have become very slick, and then you're up high, and the Alpine Mountains, things can turn so fast, and you can get hypothermic, and all of these things are happening. So we've got the elements kind of draining on us. We've got the mental challenge of not knowing what's in front. And then there were times where we found logs that we were such massive logs, our chainsaw had actually split and gone back. And so we were lifting bikes over logs, and just, it was a good day. And the funny part is, it's days like this day where you push yourself and you grow. And even though in the moment, there are times where you're like, oh man, I just wish this would end. Oh man, I just wish this would end. When your energy levels get depleted, and you're emotionally depleted, physically depleted, mentally depleted, there are times, I remember, I can think of a few specific rides where in the middle of it, I usually don't admit it to the riders with me, because of my pride, but I can think of times where I'm just like, man, I wish a helicopter could just come get me and my bike right now. And I start thinking about how much would I pay to have a helicopter come pick me up and just take me and my bike out of here. But then as time fades, you start to think back on those days with fondness and kind of a pride of like, oh my gosh, I really did something there. I broke through a barrier. And again, like nothing you've seen on this particular video here is exceptionally challenging. Nothing that I've shown you here. But what follows, most of which did not get recorded because I was just over it at that point. And I'm going so slow, and I'm making so many mistakes, towards the end of the day, I'm not recording it. And there were several times that I was just off the bike pushing it up these hills, and just breathing, heart rate spiked all the way, 170 beats per minute, and just completely gassed. And a lot of times when I get in those situations, I am not recording, because I'm like, I don't want to remember this. I'm never going to show this to anyone. No one will understand. They won't get how steep it is. They won't get how loose it is. They won't get how tough it is. Some will, but then you'll have some of these a-holes online that'll just sit there and be like, oh my gosh, you're such a wuss. I can't believe that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not going to start the camera because of all of those factors that come in. But this was one of those days. And as it got deeper and deeper and the sky got darker and darker, we go up over a mountain, down the other side. Then we went, along a canyon, kind of down a riverbed, and then up over the mountain again, and then back down to the truck. I don't recall the mileage. I'd have to dig back through my phone, because I think I took a picture, because the XCW has, the odometer on it. But it was one of those legit days. And it was, obviously here it's been several months since this ride happened. Probably a lot of the physical gains that I would have gotten have, diminished. I'm working out. I'm trying to get stronger, and I'm constantly trying to, stay fit. But hey, bow hunter. But what sticks with you and has a more residual effect on, your psyche is the mental thing. Like I would like to go back and do this exact same trail again, either this summer or the summer of 2023, and do this exact same thing again, and just see how much easier it is. And I know it would be easier because of the mental side. Because I wouldn't remember every turn, I wouldn't remember every obstacle, but it would be, I would know that I can do it. I would know kind of what's coming and know generally what to expect. And I have found that makes a huge difference in your riding and on some of these trail rides. So if you don't enjoy a trail ride once, the first time, just know you've cracked the hardest time ever going on that trail. Typically, sometimes trails can, devolve and certain obstacles can get harder and things, but what's there. And so I've found that mental side makes a huge difference in our riding and our experiences. So thank you so much for supporting, and leave a single track. Thanks, everybody.